Welcome to Weapons and Warfare. For Straight Arrow News, I'm your host, Ryan Robertson. Since launching this series in January, the show and our audience have grown. This is our 27th episode, and we've enjoyed every step along the way. But there was a story in our premiere that, by the very nature of pilot episodes, maybe didn't find as wide an audience as our team would have liked. So we're bringing it back, and we have an update. It's a story we're excited to retell, so let's just skip the headlines and get right to the debrief.
Tonight, you will be the victim of a nuclear attack by the Russians. Half an hour after this sneak attack, America will be on its knees.
If you grew up in the Cold War era, the threat of nuclear bombs and radioactive fallout were an accepted part of life. Something you knew was possible, even if unlikely to ever happen. While much of those threats ended with the thawing of U.S. and Russian relations in the 90s, the danger still exists. Only now, it's also in the hands of much smaller players, less predictable enemies. It's a concern that has the Department of Defense turning to the University of Nebraska to find an answer for a problem they hope with which they never have to deal.
Okay, elevated readings. What are your readings then?
For many, the thought of a dirty bomb sounds like something straight out of a Tom Clancy novel, which it is. But it's also something that, in the hands of the wrong people, poses a very real threat to not only Americans, but places of American interest all across the globe. Mix in the potential for a nuclear accident or a nuclear weapons incident, and you have the need for something that can protect those who head straight into harm's way when the situation requires it.
When you think about the threats that our military personnel could face anywhere around the world in any scenario, and we have a very interesting world around us, whether it's Ukraine, the Middle East, whatever it is, we have to be thinking about the threats that could be coming down the road in the future, along with today's threats. And so one of the things that is out there is potential exposure to radiation.
That's where the work of some very talented people at the University of Nebraska and the University of Nebraska Medical Center comes in. They are part of a collaborative effort with the National Strategic Research Institute, or NSRI, to create a treatment to prevent or reduce the effects of acute radiation syndrome. Symptoms of ARS include all the classics: burning sensations on the skin, diarrhea, maybe death. That threat is far more than hypothetical. In October, a Houston police officer carrying something similar to a Geiger counter was alerted to the presence of some improperly disposed cesium-137 in a Houston scrapyard. It's the kind of mistake that, if found by the wrong people, could pose a very serious problem in a very large metropolitan area.
If they're going to go in harm's way, if they're going to go into a situation where there's radioactivity, they could take this drug and be protected in part from the radiation exposure.
So when the government looked at that problem in there, how do we protect service members we might put into harm's way from exposure to a threat, in this case radiation, and allow them to accomplish their mission and then come home to their families. So this type of project is really focused on protecting our service members from a threat that they could be exposed to on a really bad day.
In September of 2023, the Defense Health Agency awarded a $24.5 million contract to NSRI, the DoD University-affiliated Research Center of U.S. Strategic Command, and the University of Nebraska system.
I usually phrase it as that, we are trying to use our research to be able to protect from damage due to radiation. And so, if that's in the context of being an accidental radiation exposure or having, some type of, military catastrophe, we're trying to make it so that we have things in place so that people can be protected if they have to go into a situation.
Cases are rare, but effects of ARS and its punishing aftermath can be found in the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, as well as the Chernobyl nuclear power plant disaster in 1986. But there are more recent examples of potential dangers. According to the BBC, last October, Russia's defense minister told his counterparts in the UK, France, and the US that he believed Ukraine could be preparing a dirty bomb for use against Russia. Ukraine responded by calling the allegations transparently false, but it's the kind of rhetoric that makes people stop and think, what if? That's why, in part, the research team in Nebraska turned to Dr. Thomas Hellicar and his use of computational systems biology, essentially using a digital patient in place of a real one.
I wanted to be a scientist to make a difference, and this project enables me to do that because we're going from, in our case, from computer models all the way, hopefully, to use of the medications that we develop by soldiers. Being able to contribute to a project that has this translational impact in my lifetime. I don't have to wait 20 years for somebody to discover our science and do something with it. We will be able to, at this university, we'll be able to, and the university system will be able to really scale that up and apply that to other diseases.
Well, the Defense Health Agency is looking out primarily for those service members who would be in harm's way. The research will yield benefits for civilians as well.
Anything that we can do in our lab to help make somebody's life better is a win for me, and so that's our goal as researchers. And so, if we can help, protect our military servicemen, that is wonderful. If we can help protect cancer patients, that's wonderful. So we're really that's why I am in this business, is because I want to help people and use our knowledge on the science to be able to make other people's lives better in the future.
For those involved, the collaborative nature of the work is a motivating factor. As they continue to put the pieces in place they hope will one day protect service members and patients alike.
Fundamentally, I think as Midwesterners, we just collaborate well. We work well together. I think what we're offering and what we've developed honestly could have been developed at a lot of other institutions. What makes us unique is that we brought all this talent together to a common mission.
Together we can do much bigger science than alone. And we have about half of our researchers in Lincoln and half in Omaha. We meet regularly. Samples get passed back and forth. Students work together. It's powerful, powerful.
That story originally aired in January, so we thought it might be a good idea to check in with the folks doing the work for an update on where their efforts are now. I recently caught up with Willa Cather professor Dr. David Berkowitz of the University of Nebraska's College of Arts and Sciences Department of Chemistry.
Dr. David Berkowitz, thank you so much for joining us. We caught you on a pretty epic trip through France, so want to thank you for taking time with the time difference and everything from where you're at to where we're at. But want to talk to you today, kind of catch up. We just watched the story that originally aired back in January about the joint project between the University of Nebraska system, the NSRI, the DoD, to create this prophylactic for anti-radiation sickness. So what's kind of what's the latest with the project?
Yeah, so as we were talking about then, it's all about trying to find MCM's medical countermeasures for acute radiation syndrome. So it's about trying to protect those who might encounter radiation, certainly our troops, and there really isn't anything out there to protect them. And so that's been the holy grail of this project, and it's been really exciting collaboration between the basic scientists at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln main campus, flagship campus, and the University of Nebraska Medical Center scientists, the biomedical scientists in Omaha, under the banner of the National Strategic Research Institute, the NSRI. And we've progressed quite a bit since the last time we talked. And I could go on and on, but maybe I should let you ask specific questions.
Well, how do you you said there was some progressions that were made. So what does that look like? Are we 6 months away, 6 years away from having this thing, or when you say there's been some progress made, what does that look like?
Well, so now we have 3 or 4 candidates that look viable. but they're at different stages along the pipeline, if you will. So some of these are pretty early stage candidates, meaning they really haven't been in humans to test for safety. That would be sort of a phase 1 clinical trial, whereas the ones that are at a later stage have been in humans for a very long time, but not maybe for this application. So we have these different flavors of candidates, which is very exciting because we do have as many as 4 that have potential. And that's the excitement. And when last time I talked, we had one that looked, maybe 1 or 2 that looked really good. And now there are a couple more that show real potential. One of these quite new in our studies. So, when we're in the middle of the research, I never want to jinx it. So there's a lot of science that has to be done before you know that the prophylaxis is both effective and safe. And so and at each stage you start out with maybe cell line testing, in vitro testing, and then we have a wonderful member of the team at UNMC in Omaha, Rebecca Deegan, who's the mouse model expert. And we have another mouse model expert, I didn't mention this before, at the Armed Forces Radiobiology Research Institute, that's AFRI, in Bethesda, Maryland. So this is also a collaboration with AFRI. There are a lot of members of the team. And Rebecca Deegan compares her results with her counterpart at AFRI. They sometimes have different mouse lines. So we're mostly in mice, but as I mentioned, our top candidate has been in humans for other purposes before. So that gives you a sense of where the different candidates are along the pipeline.
Dr. Berkowitz, since we've last talked, the world has kind of taken more of a downward spiral, some might say. Do you feel more of a sense of urgency now, more of a need now for this team to produce results quicker? I mean, you felt it before, but now do you feel more of a sense of urgency?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we work for the Defense Health Agency. We work for the Department of Defense. We're acutely aware, and they're even more aware, of course, than we are, of the international picture. And so this comes up even in our meetings, though our meetings are basically scientific. It's natural to talk about the news of the day and the situation that happened, the war in Ukraine, and the activities around Chernobyl that happened earlier. There were soldiers in that space, and that space is still contaminated. They were not American soldiers. Nonetheless, we talked about that. We wondered, if there were Russians in there, what were they carrying, and things like this. And if the Ukrainian soldiers had to fight there, what would they carry? And so those spots are very much current. And then sort of the political tensions of the day, be they in Asia or in the Middle East or in Eastern Europe. There are these hotspots where nuclear threats are discussed on a regular basis. They're threats. We are not policy people. We're just scientists, but we're acutely aware that were we to be successful, we would have something that would protect our troops and keep them out of harm's way when they would potentially go into situations like this. And we're also aware that if we're successful, the civilian population could benefit as well as a sort of broader impact of the work.
And Dr. Berkowitz, that kind of leads into my next question. So we had done a show recently about moral injury, and that's kind of to define it quickly. It's kind of the harm that happens when things don't go exactly right and the stakes are very high. So it's oftentimes the moral injury is when a soldier has to in the course of their work they have to do something that they find conflicts with their conscience. So Oppenheimer, we kind of had Oppenheimer the movie was a chance for people to see moral injury kind of on the big screen. So my question for you, Dr. Berkowitz, is that was kind of on one side, the moral injury with Oppenheimer's struggle to do what his country asked him. You're kind of on the other side of things now. Not really moral injury. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm making this up on the spot, but moral compassion, moral
Solution?
mending. Yeah, moral solution. That's a good.
Almost. Yeah, we've never talked about it that way. So it's an interesting point you bring up. So this is new for me to think about. But honestly, it's interesting that you bring this up now because there's all this discussion about presidential immunity. And I thought about Harry Truman, who had to make that very difficult decision, right, in World War II, when we were in such a struggle with Japan. And as we look back on that, it's a difficult time in the history of the world to think about from a moral point of view. We wanted to end the war. We wanted to save lives, and to save lives, many lives were lost. So these are difficult moral decisions that relate to nuclear weapons, frankly. We hope they're never used again. But what we're trying to do, yes, is protect not just from the fallout from the use of nuclear weapons, but from the fact that nuclear power is, I don't know if it's here to stay, but it's incredibly important to the world right now. In fact, I'm in France right now, and nuclear is a huge source of energy in this country. In the US, it's still important. Obviously, in Japan, it's important. So if we come up with a successful countermeasure, a prophylactic for acute radiation syndrome, obviously it would be useful for those who could be put in harm's way, who are sent off to difficult and sensitive parts of the globe. But it has the potential to also kind of protect us as a people against the moral challenges of just using, nuclear energy, which is still, right? There's always a danger there, and there's always nuclear waste when you're done. So the implications of what this project would mean for a little bit protection against these moral decisions, but most importantly, just for human health and welfare, well-being for generations to come. These implications are large. So it's both an awesome responsibility, but how shall I say, it's a privilege to work with our core, our representative from the Defense Health Agency, Dr. Alan Epstein, who guides us in this research as we try to do something that we think would be really important. But it's going to take a while. To your earlier question, we haven't done anything new in humans. We're still in mice with what we're doing, and some of our compounds have seen human exposure. However, some of the results in mice are really quite remarkable. So we're gearing up to a much larger trial for our best couple candidates right now.
Well, Dr. Berkowitz, thank you so much for joining us today. Wish you nothing but success in all of your endeavors in this project. Again, thank you for joining us from France. We know the time difference was nothing to shake a stick at, so appreciate your time, and good luck to you and your team, and thank you.
Ryan, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. I just want to say big shout out to Ken Bales, who's my partner. He's the Vice Chancellor for Research at the University of Nebraska Medical Center. It's the two of us who lead this, and we have a wonderful team, about equal number of researchers from UNMC in Omaha, UNL in Lincoln, and wonderful collaborators at APRI in Bethesda. We want to thank you at Straight Arrow News for keeping the world apprised of what's going on. We appreciate your work.
Serving you clarity through context, our mission at SAN is to deliver the news straight down the middle. We're different from mainstream media because we spotlight distorted headlines and show you how to do it too. Discover stories that right and left-leaning outlets are choosing not to cover by using our Media Mist tool. Download the SAN app and turn on notifications to have straight facts delivered right to your phone or tablet, and get straight facts anytime at SAN.com.
All opinions expressed in this segment are solely the opinions of the contributors.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for us here at Weapons and Warfare. I'm really happy we were able to once again share this story, not just because it showcases some very smart folks from my alma mater, but because it also shows there are people working on worst-case scenario outcomes. They're planning ahead for a potential future we hope we never see, and that makes me feel better. When it comes to things like national security, planning ahead quite literally saves lives. So, I want to know my government is working on answers to the questions: what happens if our troops are exposed to nuclear radiation? Can we keep them safe? But the benefits of planning ahead don't just matter when the stakes are as high as nuclear radiation. A long time ago, I was a Boy Scout. I didn't make it far in the Scouts because of some controversy over a Pinewood Derby incident, the details of which I won't go into here. But one of the lessons I did take with me from the Scouts: always be prepared. Ben Franklin said, "By failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail." The best sayings are always the most obvious, right? I live in the Midwest, so we have a severe weather plan. I have kids, so there's an emergency plan. I have a wife, so I know how sometimes even the best laid plans don't always pan out. We can't plan for everything because we don't know everything, but we know enough to need a plan. And we hope you plan to stay in touch with the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on all of our social media platforms that you see on your screen. You can also email us at weaponsandwarfare@san.com. For senior producer Brett Baker, video editor Brian Spencer, and graphics designer Dakota Patillo, I'm Ryan Robertson with Straight Arrow News, signing off.